Okay. Good morning. This is Geography 10 Lecture 8. I want to start today with a discussion about the movie that we watched on Tuesday, Grass. On the title slide here, this first slide, if you've printed them out, go ahead and cross out "and ills" after weeds, because we're not actually going to talk about ills today. Mainly, we're going to talk about the movie, and then we're going to talk about weeds, and then we're going to talk about invasive species. A couple of housekeeping matters. First of all, as I indicated in an email on Monday, I believe it was, or anyway, earlier this week, we are going to take everybody who's on the waiting list and put you in the class. What this means is if you're on the waiting list and you don't want to take the class, you're going to find yourself enrolled, which means that if you want to drop, you're going to have to pay the registrar $10. And I know such a person, if such a person exists, is probably not in the hall right now and can't hear me anyway. Nonetheless, I feel it's necessary to alert you to this. In other words, if you don't want to take this class and you're still on the wait list, drop it, like before 2 o'clock this afternoon. Okay? I think this is all going to work out as far as enrollment. So, just as I hoped. One other little piece there is that in order to do this, we have to provide for some way of handling the possibility that there will be more students taking the midterm than there are seats in this room. What that means is that I have reserved another room, and we will take the sort of overflow from this room to that room, along with the DSP students, on the day of the midterm, which is the 9th, March 9th. Okay? But we'll figure that out ahead of time so that we don't have to waste your time walking from here to there. We'll figure out some way of deciding ahead of time who's going to go over to Macomb and use a room over there for the midterm. We may have to do the same thing for the final. Other housekeeping matter. There will be no class on March 4th. We will have the review session, which was going to happen on March 4th, some other time before the midterm. Okay? Any questions? Any thoughts about the movie? How'd you like it? I'm getting virtually no reaction. What'd you think of the movie? It was all right. How about you? Yeah. Favela Rising was better. You didn't like this one so much. Why not?
Just thought the topics were more interesting.
Okay. All right. Who agrees that the topics are more interesting in Favela Rising than Grass? All right. A handful of you. Anyone feel the other way around? Okay. We're getting a high rate of abstention in this little straw poll that I'm trying to conduct. Where should we start? Human-livestock interactions? What did you see in this movie? Or should we? Yeah, go ahead.
I thought it was neat the way they used the goat skins to cross the river. I thought that was an interesting livestock relation.
Okay. You need to get across a raging river with a whole bunch of animals, and you don't have a boat. But you do have a whole bunch of goat stomachs. No problem. Pretty clever. Pretty amazing. Kind of hard. You wonder where they carry all those goat stomachs when they're not using them to cross a river. And how they manage to maintain them such that they will actually hold air. Any other interesting... Any of you wish that you had been born into this society and could do this yourself twice a year? No? How does it compare to backpacking in the Sierra? Is this a form of recreation, these migrations? Pretty burly. Don't you think it should be featured in Outside Magazine? The gnarliest thing you can do with your vacation? Yeah. Why were they barefooted when they were going through the snow? Well, we can speculate. First of all, they don't have a lot of really nice Gore-Tex boots. They can't get those very easily. I suspect that it's because that any shoes or foot protection that they chose to produce for that part of the walk would be destroyed. And that, therefore, it doesn't make sense. Why put a whole bunch of effort into making a bunch of shoes only to have them, basically destroyed in the space of a couple days? Why not just go barefoot? That's my guess. I don't know for sure. What did you see that they possessed that they presumably could not produce themselves? Yeah, guns. Anything else? Yeah, the hookah. Good question. Could they produce a hookah on their own? Yeah, shovels and picks. So basically, things made out of metal, right? And that's about it as far as things that are clearly beyond their own means of production, so to speak, right? So it would appear. Who knows how they get those things? Whether they get them through some kind of barter or trade, where they have to go to get them, whether the people who they get them from are themselves nomadic or traveling around and they encounter them and swap. Who knows? They probably trade animals for guns and ammunition. Other than that, they are, it would appear, capable of producing everything that they need themselves because they have all these animals, right? What else? Any other? Did you find it unbelievable? No? No one? Everyone? Yes. If you check out the 1976 remake, there's a nice little map graphic thing at the beginning that portrays on a map the migration in a sort of finer scale. And because the movie only shows you one of the tribes, right? There are actually quite a few others that are not in the movie. So the 50,000 people and 500,000 animals includes the broader tribe, as far as I understand it. But if you look at the way they move through the mountains, this is not something they can do in a day or two. This is something that takes quite some time to achieve. And all along the way, they've got to make sure that their animals can eat, right? And what this means, because they're moving up these valleys, is that they sort of break up into smaller groups and then reconvene in such a fashion that when they get to a big valley where there's a lot of grass, they can pause and let all their animals stock up on food again before setting off further up. In other words, they have to be very careful about not just when they leave, but each step along the way, they have to make sure that there's enough grass and enough water for all their animals. And why is that such a tricky decision to make? Why? The whole ritual thing at the beginning, it's not quite ritual, I suppose, but the meeting that they hold at which it's decided that it's time to go. Why is that such an important decision? What are the things they have to think about in deciding when to start on this migration? Yeah. Okay, we're actually here. This is the spring migration. So it's the other way around. The point is correct. They are trying to time this in relation to the spring thaw. And what kinds of factors does that affect? Yeah. Okay, the crossing of the river. That's a key point in this. And how would you decide? I mean, if you're sitting down at the beginning of the migration, you presumably don't have a live webcam showing you that spot on the river where you're going across. You don't know what the river looks like at the time that you set out. What happens if you wait too long? So, the longer you wait, the bigger that river gets, right? Because what's going on is that the glaciers up in the mountains are melting, the snowpack is melting, the river is rising. So the longer you wait, the more dangerous that river is likely to be, the more animals and potentially people you stand to lose crossing that river. What else? Yeah. Okay, they have to think about the grass, and they have to think about the grass in two different places, right? They have to think about it where they're at when they start. They are feeding their animals on the winter grass, which is to say the grass that grew whenever it was last warm enough and wet enough to grow, and presumably it's not growing anymore in the wintertime because it's too cold, and they will run out of grass if they wait too long. And if they wait too long and run out of grass, their animals will start to lose the strength that they need to make it over the mountains. On the other hand, they also have to be thinking about the grass on the other side of the mountains, right? They don't want to get there until that grass has started to green up. And that will happen in the spring as it gets warmer. The plains of Iran are a lot higher than the Tigris-Euphrates floodplain area where they start. And they need to get there and have grass there that is green already. So if they leave too early, hoping to minimize the size of the river, for example, they might get over the pass and down to the other side and discover that the grass hasn't greened up yet. And that would also be bad for their animals. In case you are wondering, grass is a whole lot more nutritious. Most grasses are a whole lot more nutritious for animals when they're green than they are when they have dried out. What else? What about this territory that they occupy? How is it marked or delineated? Do we have any sense of the territoriality of this tribe? Dead silence. All right, that question's going on midterm. Yeah. Okay. 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 Right. Okay, it doesn't seem like they have territory. Not in Delaney's sense, right? It doesn't seem like there is an inside and an outside, a clear boundary around their territory. It probably is the case, in fact, that they know very well what the boundaries of their territory are. And yes, they matter insofar as they relate to other groups of people who might choose to use that territory or move across that territory. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The desert police. The police on camels. And that is in a different place. That's down in what's now Iraq, as they're making their way from the Kurdish territory, sort of south and east, the length of Iraq, to the Bakhtiari. And at that point, the movie is set in the midst of vast open desert. And these police represent who? What? Any ideas? They are the police. They represent the government, right? And they are, in a sense, asserting the territorial sovereignty and the police authority of that government over that space. And to the extent that they succeed in doing this, they are, in fact, consolidating the territoriality of the government, right? Of the state at that point in time. And we'll talk later about what exactly the form of government was in that region in this time period. That was very much in flux. Nonetheless, they are the official enforcers of the law in that space. We don't see any such people patrolling in the Bakhtiari territory, do we? What about the fact that that landscape appears to be as rugged and inaccessible as it is? Do you think it would be helpful if the government embraced the Bakhtiari as citizens and decided that this is a backwards area, these people need to get some progress, they need to benefit from the technologies of the modern world, and therefore we're going to implement a development project? What do you think the first thing such a project would be likely to do is? Yeah. Bingo. Build a road over that mountain. Would building a road over that mountain benefit the Bakhtiari? Yes? You think so? Why? Yeah. What do we mean by benefit? Okay. And? Okay, a road would make their trip easier, presumably, and that might be a benefit to them. They might be able to make it more quickly. They might be able to make it without losing as many sheep. Maybe give them a bridge across that river. On the other hand, you got to start wondering what the other effects of a road might be. And not just the question of whether it would alter Bakhtiari culture, which no doubt it would, but what else is it about roads that is, yeah. Okay, presumably, unless you gave the Bakhtiari exclusive control over the road, presumably what the road would really do most is make the area more accessible to other people, right? People who don't know how to make it across that pass with their animals and no trucks, right? And that very likely would create conflicts between the Bakhtiari and whoever decided that they had an interest in utilizing that space, right? And the effect of a road would very likely be to eventually make that migration and that livelihood more difficult, if not altogether impossible. Who knows what the resource might be that would attract outside interests, whether it would be mining or something else. But chances are that the road looks like it would help them, but very likely would not help them in the long run. Any other thoughts about the movie? Okay, let's try the straw poll again. How many of you actually liked this movie? Okay, and how many of you thought it was a total waste of time? Oh, good. All right, not many. Maybe one or two. All right. Here's the update. The readings for today: Crosby, chapters 7 and 8. For Tuesday, I'd like you to read Crosby, chapter 9, and the article 1491 by Charles Mann. And then for next Thursday, Crosby, chapters 11 and 12. All right, let's talk a little bit about weeds. Here's a map depicting external migrations, the movement of people between major parts of the world since 1500. The width of the arrow is an indication of the rough number of people involved. and the colors indicate different groups of people. I assume you can read the legend here. So the largest migration by far since 1500 is of Europeans moving to North America. Second largest, well, there's several here, Africans moving to the Americas. Here, the vast majority of it is the slave trade, which we'll talk about in a week or two. You also see quite a few migrations from other parts of the world that perhaps are less well known and that we have not talked about. Migrations from South Asia to the eastern coast of Africa and to the United Kingdom. Migrations from East Asia, China, both to North America and to Southeast Asia. Migrations, the blue line, the migration of European Jews from Europe to Israel, Palestine. The movement of Mexicans and Central Americans from Mexico north into the United States. So you see a great number of movements. The big one from Europe to North America is the primary focus here, right? And in many ways, this is a depiction, a cartographic depiction of the phenomenon that Crosby's trying to explain, right? How is it that such a massive migration succeeded? And you can see also the skinnier green arrows of Europeans migrating to the Neo-Europes, right? The southern cone of South America, Australia. These are the other places that Crosby is designating as the Neo-Europes. And the chapters for today about weeds and animals are a more detailed discussion of the other parts of the portmanteau biota, right? And the next chapter, which we'll read for Tuesday, is about germs, basically, about diseases, but those are the ills. But for today, we want to talk about plants and animals. And his case is that these plants and animals also went with the Europeans, and that in certain parts of the world, they not only flourished, but were instrumental to the success of the people establishing in those areas, and led to the dominance of those people in those areas, and the disappearance or near disappearance of the native peoples who had been living there before. And today, we're going to talk mostly about the plants, his discussion of weeds, and then I'm going to try to bring this up to date in a discussion of invasive species issues today, and talk a little bit about the differences, if there are any, between the kinds of things he's describing from contact, hundreds of years ago, and the situations that a lot of conservation biologists and environmental groups are concerned about today with invasive species, both plants and animals, in different parts of the world. So this is a little bit of a side step for a moment. Clarence Glacken, who was a geographer here at Berkeley, and who wrote a book called Traces on the Rhodian Shore, which is a study of Western theories or studies of the relationship of people to the environment, nature and society, going all the way back to the ancient Greeks and even before then. And he brings it forward to about 1700. It's an enormous book. And he offers as a sort of overarching thesis that there are three dominant trains of thought, or frameworks, paradigms, you might say, in the Western tradition for thinking about this relationship between nature and society. And they're pretty simple looking on the face of it. But I think that's what you get when you try to generalize from the entire Western tradition over 4,000 or 5,000 years. The first is that nature determines society. And when I say determines, what I mean is shapes, influences, right? That societies are a function of or are conditioned by the nature, the environment in which they find themselves. And environmental determinism is the sort of extreme version of this way of thinking about nature-society relationships. The other one he identified was the other way around, that society determines nature. In other words, human societies alter their environments. They produce certain kinds of changes in their environments to facilitate their own growth and well-being. You might here wonder, this sounds more like the sort of modern sensibility of environmentalism, in which humans are a sort of outside force that affects the environment, frequently for ill, right? Frequently with damaging consequences. But it's actually got a very long history in the Western tradition. This is not a new idea. And then the third is that the two fit together in some harmonious way, that each is somehow disposed to facilitate the other. Humans are magnificently well suited to exploit their environments because they have brains, and they have thumbs, and they walk upright, and they have language. And this is somehow magnificently well suited to the environments in which they live, right? It enables them to take sticks and turn them into tools and use them to plant food crops, that kind of thing. And meanwhile, on the other hand, nature appears to also be beneficently, nicely designed, right? We have fertile soils and climates that are suited to our needs. We have day and night and whatever else it is in the natural world that we are attuned to. And the predominant sort of perspective from which this paradigm evolved, or within which it evolved over most of the Western tradition, was a sort of theological or religious one, right? This fit between the world and people was seen as evidence that God, or some kind of divine creator, had put this together in this magnificent way, that this harmony between nature and society, or nature and humans, was sort of miraculous. And these were things that we had to interpret as sort of given to us by the creator. Now, that's not to say it's the only way you can have this kind of thinking. This is, again, there's a modern variant on this, in which you sort of combine these three perspectives, and you say, okay, yes, humans affect the environment. We can do all kinds of crazy things to make the environment better for our needs, but every once in a while, nature gets the upper hand, right? We build a bunch of levees